This is the Haulin Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 71 of the Haulin Assets podcast. I am Craig, and he is...
Chris.
Same
today, guy. You haven't got rid of me yet.
I am excited for today's episode because it's something about letting me be offensive, right?
Oh, yeah, you read that slightly wrong.
So today's episode is about going on the offensive. We'll see what I can do.
It's right in your realm. The offensive... Being offensive is right down your alley.
It's what I do, yeah. Chris. Okay. All right. But before we get to that, let's go through a little bit of housekeeping and see what's going on lately in the world of Haulin Assets. So I will remind everybody, go to haulinassetsllc.com and go check out past episodes and full show notes, especially on the episodes when we do financials. It's great to be able to see all of the documentation that goes along with what we're talking about. So please go check that out. You can also comment on the episodes and have us address your questions and comments, which you can also do if you find us on Facebook. Please find Haulin Assets on Facebook. There's no G in Haulin Assets.
No G.
And you can interact with Chris, especially there. So, Chris, how are things going with the company?
Overall, they're going well, although last week was a crazy week.
Why is that?
Well, so we've got the second truck on the road.
Oh, okay. So you found another driver then?
Got another driver, Vinny, and he's been awesome so far, especially considering what's happened on his first load went pretty smooth. It was leaving from Salt Lake going to Alabama.
Okay.
And getting there was fairly smooth, but the South last week had one of the coldest spells of weather and snow and ice that it has had in generations.
Right.
And he ended up getting stuck in Mississippi with roads shut down for like 2 days.
In Mississippi.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
I was watching the temperature and the highs in Mississippi, just outside of Jackson, were in the 20s, like low 20s, like crazy cold.
Which
for that
in
area.
Certain parts of the country, that's no problem because they've got the infrastructure for it. But
right.
And that sucks because he's right there. He's in Mississippi. Yeah. He's almost to Alabama.
Well, he dropped the Alabama load off.
He was picking up another load
coming back, and that's when the trouble started.
Oh, well.
So yeah, he ended up sitting for really 3 full days, and then it's kind of funny. Well, not really funny, but kind of funny. The day he gets going again. He got going, and then he pulled into a truck stop it was just outside of Memphis, and he was just doing his 30-minute break, stopped in a parking lot, and when he tried to start going again, the truck was stuck.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so he couldn't move it anywhere, and we looked into getting a wrecker to come pull him out. Well, this was at like 2:00 in the afternoon, and the wrecker wouldn't be able to be there till maybe 9:00 at night. So poor Vinny got out of a screwdriver and chiseled himself a path in the ice so that he could get the truck rolling again.
I like that. I like that about Vinny. He sounds like a go-getter.
He is a go-getter. He, it's kind of that owner-op mentality. We're going to make this work one way or another.
And also,
so
can I just point out that there was never a better name for a trucker than Vinny?
It's a good name. It is a really good name.
I don't know. Anyway, sorry. So go on.
So yeah, he spent way too long that afternoon in cold weather, chiseling with a screwdriver to get enough traction. Usually there's tricks to kind of handle that kind of thing. You kitty litter or ice melt or throw some sand down in front of the tires. Well, the truck stopped that whole area just out of everything, because at this point they've been, everybody's been stranded in that area for days. And so the normal remedies that you would use to get yourself out of a pinch like that just weren't available.
Amazing. Well, go Vinny. I'm glad he got out eventually. And hopefully everything is going okay for people listening from those southern states. We hope you're all right. Hope you weathered that storm as well as possible. Because, that sounds like it was brutal. I've got a brother-in-law down there who had to leave his apartment, go sleep in the local church building where they had some generators and heat and all that. So
it was pretty bad. Texas was just, you see lots of pictures out of Texas of, broken pipes and all kinds of frozen everything. It just definitely was not good.
Yeah. Well, any other stories you want to update us with?
You want to go over another rookie mistake? It's been a long time since we've had a Chris rookie mistake, Chris being an idiot.
Okay, so how are you an idiot this time, Chris?
So the green truck, the truck that I drove for the year that I was out on the road, Mike's in it, and he was driving, and he hit, I think it was Oklahoma he hit, and gotten just some really cold weather and like a freezing rain type situation. And the defroster wasn't keeping up with keeping the windshield clear of ice. And so the windshield starts filling up with ice and can't get it to defrost or anything like that. And so, he's kind of struggling, trying to get down the road, trying to keep the windshield clear of ice. And the blower just wasn't blowing any air, like maybe a smidgen of it. And he just plain couldn't keep the windshield de-iced. So we try a bunch of things, finally end up getting him you go into a truck stop and you can buy a fan that will plug into the cigarette lighter, and gets one of those, and that helps and makes it so it's manageable and he can get out. But anyway, so he gets back to Utah, and I have the mechanic go out. We'd ordered a blower, figured the blower was bad. You want to know all that it was?
What was it?
The filters were clogged.
That's it.
Literally a 30-second repair. I mean, Nice. It's literally unlatch a plastic thing, throw it in there, or pull the filters out, put new ones in, and it's done.
That's amazing.
And Mike's all like, "Man, it's so hot in here now. It's working too well. I gotta turn the heater off all the time."
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, way to go, Chris.
So now I know there is also, just like in your home, there's a filter on a truck that you've got to keep clean.
I have made that mistake in my home before. Wait a little too long, and suddenly you're not getting anything.
Yeah, it causes problems.
Yeah, for sure.
Doesn't a truck too?
So
I'm gonna I'll post a video on Facebook in the next couple of days so people can laugh at me. Bobby, the mechanic, our mechanic, had he sent me a Chris, you're a 2-year-old kindergarten dummy, Barney style for me. Showed me how to change the filter in a video. So I'll post that onto Facebook so everybody can have a little bit of a laugh at Chris's expense.
That'll be fantastic. Well, Chris, shall we get offensive?
Let's get offensive. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me what you mean. Give me the elevator pitch for this title. We're talking about going on the offensive. What does that mean?
Being proactive would probably be the quick way to explain what I'm talking about.
So that was a 1-floor elevator.
Yeah, that was fast, wasn't it? Yeah. You asked for it. I gave it to you. I exceeded your expectations.
There you go. Okay. So no, give me the real pitch.
All right. So we'll just kind of go into, I give a little backstory, kind of why I decided to do this topic. And this topic actually just kind of came out pretty quick. So as I've mentioned many times before, I'm in the National Guard, and I had drill this weekend. And this is my second month stepping into a new role. So as kind of part of me getting into this new role, I typically meet with my team and do what's called an initial counseling. And to get ready for this initial counseling, I kind of prepare and work on 2 documents. One of them is called my OER support form that basically sets the goals that I want to accomplish over the next year or so. And then the other one, it just kind of outlines my expectations and creates some action items that will help my team achieve the goals that we're all doing. And together, these 2 items kind of help create a path forward for the entire group so that we're kind of all marching towards that same goal. And as I'm going through this process, it kind of gets me thinking about 2 things. One, using your brain, and then 2, operating on the offensive. So when I'm going through this process, and in the role that I'm in right now it's a staff position. So this is the guys that do a lot of the planning, and it's not my favorite thing to do in the military. But whenever I do an initial counseling, for a staff position, there's a quote that I like to use from John Steinbeck. He says, "The purpose of fighting is to win. There's no possible victory in defense. The sword is more important than the shield, and skill is more important than either. The final weapon is the brain. All else is supplemental." So that quote kind of touches on those two topics, using your brain and that there's no victory in defense, which implies obviously that really where you need to focus your time and your energy is in offense, which I completely agree with.
Okay.
So to kind of continue to lead into this, I want to talk a little bit about competitive advantages and competition. And I want to use an example. You know what my favorite cars are, right?
Well, I think I've got a pretty good idea. It's that Tesla you've got parked out in front of my
Tesla,
house.
Yeah. My little Model 3 is the favorite car I've ever had. And, Tesla, if you think about competitive advantages, Tesla has, in especially in the electric car industry, the biggest competitive advantage. And it's something that's very specific that you can see. Their batteries, especially when they first started out, their competition, I think the longest range on a battery was 80 miles. And they started out with cars that had 250, almost 300 mile range. They're up to over 400 now at this point. So their competitive advantage was, these high performance cars with battery and electric engines that just blew the competition away. So the competitive advantage is really easy to, kind of point to a couple things that really, really sets them apart. Well, in the trucking industry, the competitive advantages are much more subtle. Trucking companies all have pretty much the same access to the same kind of vehicles. Everybody kind of has their choice. They can buy a Peterbilt, they can buy a Kenworth, they can buy a Freightliner, an International. Everybody kind of has that same access to vehicles. Larger companies are going to have some economies of scale when it comes to cost savings on maintenance and fuel expenses. But then you've got the smaller guys that are going to have lower overhead. And I think for the most part, those kind of really cancel each other out. So finding those competitive advantages in the trucking industry is a little bit harder. And in my opinion, what I see as the difference between companies that are successful and those that are not really boils down to two things. The successful guys are companies that work smarter and they work on the offense. And so that's really kind of what I want to talk a little bit more about today.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like in at least a perfect world, any sport that you might watch, they get the same number of guys on the field, they play by the same rules, whatever. But oftentimes it comes down to who wants it more. Who's got their head and their heart in the game more, that sort of thing, right?
Absolutely. And the guys that are smarter on the field and probably to a great extent in sports, the guys who have spent more time and dedication preparing for game time are the ones that are going to win. And there's a lot of similarities with that in business as well. So, let's talk first about the brain. I say this to my guys in the military all the time, and it's the same in the business. Your most important tool is your brain. It's not your truck in the trucking industry. It's really your brain. And it's one of those things that you need to use effectively. And it's like any other body part. It's something that the more you use it, the better off you're going to get with it. Like a muscle, you exercise it, it's going to get stronger. Your brain, as you exercise and use it, you're going to get smarter. You're going to learn how to solve problems, learn new skills. You need to focus on that kind of thing. The use new skills is important. You need to learn how to be, an accountant. You need to learn how to make good load decisions based off of, rates per mile and how long the truck's going to be tied up on a specific load. You need to learn how to market yourself. You need to learn how to market your company, learn how to work well with other people. And really, figuring out what makes other people tick so that you can solve problems for them and help them out. And as you use your brain to kind of figure those things out and you focus on using your brain to really do that kind of stuff, your chances of success are greater. And that's really one of the things that differentiates, successful trucking companies to those that aren't, are people in the organization who really exercise that brain.
Yeah. Boy, Chris, you're really giving ownership a hard sell here. But just think about all these things you'll have to learn how to do.
If it was easy, everybody'd do it. You know,
There you go.
You've got to be willing to do the things that other people won't to be successful.
Yeah. Okay, so that's using your brain makes a lot of sense to me. Do you want to talk about what it means to go on the offensive then? Because you've talked about around this a little bit and being proactive, taking initiative, but what does that actually look like in practical terms?
So I think most people, I find in the business world, try to take too much of a defensive approach. And when you do that, you're letting other people or other things affect what you do, and then you're just really in reaction mode, right? You're reacting to everything happening around you instead of really taking the bull by the horns and doing things yourself. So the way that I kind of look at it is a defensive business strategy are reactionary and involve kind of a wait and see approach. You're observing what your competitors are doing, and then you respond. An offensive business strategy involves taking proactive and a lot of times really kind of an aggressive approach or aggressive action on things. And you're trying to stay ahead of the game, right? You're looking into the future and doing things. So I've kind of gotten a list of things that I want to compare a defensive strategy to an offensive strategy and talk a little bit about that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like this idea of actually running through a few things on a list.
So you take, for example, if you're the kind of trucking company that is just waiting for a load on a load board, that's more what I would consider a defensive strategy.
It's reactive, like you're saying.
Yep, yeah. You're reacting to, okay, a load popped up. You're waiting for something to happen. Whereas on the offensive side is you going out and developing relationships with shippers and you finding loads. Instead of just waiting for something to, for lack of a better term, and this oversimplifies it, of just falling in your lap.
And with an example like that, it's not just about getting the load. I mean, ultimately that's what it's about. But even if you're waiting around for a day for something to show up on the load board, and instead you spend that day building relationships, and you don't end up getting a direct load. Something does pop up on the board later and you get it. Well, you just spent a day cultivating some relationships.
Absolutely.
And so it's not, it's hardly a day wasted.
You've planted some seeds. Oftentimes when you plant those seeds, you don't know, it's like you plant them and leave them. And you don't know if something's going to come, but if you plant enough seeds, eventually something's going to take and it's going to happen. So you never get discouraged. Mm-hmm. When you're doing that kind of work, because eventually if you're doing it well, you'll see the fruit of your labor.
Okay. So what else you got on your list?
Another thing that I see all the time is, and there, a couple of these things that I want to talk about have to do with kind of vehicle maintenance and repairs, but I see way too often guys that wait too long for replacing a tire on a trailer or on a tractor. And I've made this mistake myself. So you wait too long. You want to get as much as you possibly can out of that tire. And so instead of just replacing it, you go out on the road and it blows on the road. Then you're all of a sudden dealing with, okay, I got to find a place to get it taken care of. It's probably going to cost me more because I'm doing it out on the road rather than kind of with somebody that I've got an established relationship with. So I think in a lot of situations, just, for convenience, for avoiding the possibility of delivering a load late and everything, you're probably a little bit better off, again, being proactive and replacing tires before they're threadbare.
Right. It's and as the guy who's driving the tiny little car behind you, I can tell you it's not a lot of fun when that tire blows.
No, it's not. You don't want to get one of those gators in the road and run over it. That's
exactly.
Not fun.
All right. What else?
So again, along the lines with maintenance, it's really easy. If your truck is supposed to get serviced every 40,000 miles, it's really easy to stretch that out too far and say, well, I'm busy. I got to take this other load. I know it's due right now, but I can't come home yet, or I don't have time to get it serviced. And so all of a sudden that 40,000 stretches into 50. And then you the next time it comes due, you're like, well, 50,000 was fine last time. I'll do 50,000 again. And all of a sudden you're stretching out that maintenance cycle more than it should, which, in the long run is going to eventually catch up to you. And rather than just, kind of sticking to that's the defensive side. The offensive side is really just religiously sticking to that maintenance schedule, especially if you're planning on keeping that truck long term, which, in most situations, even when you buy a brand new truck, I'm going to argue that you're better off of taking really good care of it. You've taken good care of it. And then instead of lasting you 5 years, you can stretch it out and make it last 6 years. And that 1 year of extra time on a truck is going to pay off in the long run financially.
Yeah, no doubt. Any others?
Yeah, I got a couple more.
You've got this. That's right. This is a whole list.
Of them. Yeah. Fueling is a big one. So a defensive strategy would just be, I'm going to fuel when I run out or get low, versus an offensive strategy would be good fuel planning. And we've talked a little bit about fuel planning in prior episodes, but being really conscious about it is oftentimes going to be the difference between, I'm running out here, I've got to fuel up now. I'm in an area where it's 20 cents a gallon more than if I could have gone if I would have fueled 100 miles before.
Yeah,
this
location. Is what you were talking about before with fuel cards and loyalty programs and that sort of thing, right? Where you can make your dollar stretch a lot further if you just plan it out a little more.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Money. Let's talk a little bit about money.
Let's do it, Chris.
My favorite subject. Yep. Not having a plan for your money. That defensive thing of just not being disciplined about saving, not having a rainy day fund. And that's the defensive side. We're being on the offensive side. If you consciously are deliberate with your money, you save it, that's going to make it so that you have money either when an emergency comes along, or even better, you've got money when an opportunity comes along. And that's really, you hear a lot about people talking about, luck is really just being prepared when an opportunity comes along. And that's really what it is. And if you've got money and an opportunity comes along, you can jump on that. And it's really not luck. It's you being prepared.
Yeah, I like that. This is beautiful, actually. Just concrete examples of things you can do. And in fact, I think we're going to talk about savings a little more at the end of the episode. But that's great. Back on the repairs side, I was thinking of another thing that you've talked about, and that's having a mechanic.
Yep.
Not just going to whatever mechanic.
Whoever. Yeah.
But having somebody you trust, right?
Exactly. And so just going willy-nilly to any mechanic, that's defensive. You're reacting, you're solving a problem that just all of a sudden happens, rather than you're going out, making a relationship, finding a mechanic that you can trust, that you use regularly, that's going to take good care of you, is not going to overcharge you. An offensive strategy is having that proactive relationship with that mechanic that can help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Like I said, I love having actual concrete advice. A lot of times we spend time talking about things in the abstract, but go check out your tires. How are they doing? There's really good some concrete tips for people. So
I don't know, there was like 6 or 7 tips, but in reality, there's a lot more things that you can do. And this is, the thing that I would do at this point is kind of challenge some of our listeners to go out and use your brain and think of more offensive strategies. What can you do proactively for your business today to help it be successful? What changes can you make? What things can you do to have a competitive advantage over your competition? Every business is a little bit different, and you really need to use your brain, exercise your brain, think about it, put some effort into that, and find a way to be proactive and bring success to you rather than waiting for it to happen.
Waiting for it to come. I'm going to add to that challenge, Chris. I want people to not only think of ways that they can do that, but I would like them to share those as well. So find us on Facebook, HaulinAssetsLLC.com, and let's do a little, it could be confessional time. What's the thing that you need to do that is kind of, you need to be more on the offensive with? And I think this would be a great topic to revisit with some listener input if we can get some.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
So yeah, let us know the thing that you need to do better and that you're going to work on, or the thing that you feel like right now is a strong point for you. I'd like to hear those as well, as far as this proactive attitude that Chris is talking about.
That would be great.
Okay, so Chris, I want an impact tip. And I already know, I got a little preview of what this is. Like I said, it's about saving money, right?
Yep. Establishing an emergency fund. So that you've got to establish an emergency fund. And this is just basically having some money saved aside. And we talk about this a decent amount throughout the stretch of the podcast, but just having a good emergency fund for when the inevitable happens. You're going to have things that pop up, and it's a big difference if you've got the money versus not having it. It reduces your stress. There's all kinds of benefits to just having some money saved up.
But the difference today is that you've actually got a number. We've talked a lot about saving and having an emergency fund, but you've got a number in mind for how much people should have.
Yep. I think a minimum for, if you're a one truck owner operator, you should have at least $10,000 saved up for your first truck as an emergency fund. At least $10,000. If it's an older truck and the engine's going to go out in the next year or two at some point, then you might want to have a little bit more than that. But I think at least a minimum of $10,000.
Okay, and so that's $10,000 per truck if you've got a 5-truck fleet or 10 trucks or whatever?
I don't know. As you get bigger and you kind of scale, the likelihood or the chances that, say you've got 5 trucks, that even 2 trucks in your fleet go out at the same time and need a major repair done, it becomes lower and lower. So you may want to say, okay, I want $10,000 for maybe those first 2 trucks. But then truck 3, 4, and 5, I just need an extra $5,000. So, if you're, for 1 truck, you might want to have $10,000, 2 trucks, you might want to have $20,000. But then when you get up to 5 trucks, you may say, okay, just $35,000 is enough. Right. Because like I said, it's less likely that you're going to have a catastrophic failure on multiple vehicles at the same time. So, something like that's usually pretty safe.
And it's nice to have a specific number to work toward, to know, to have a goal, right? Yeah. So instead of just saying, I'm going to save money, it's like saying, I'm going to lose weight, right? You got to set a target weight, right?
Yep. If you remember, I think we've talked about goals and SMART, the acronym SMART. You remember that?
I remember the acronym. I don't remember what it stands for.
Let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. So goals need to be specific, measurable. So I need to save money, specific, measurable, $10,000, achievable, R&T, realistic, and they need to have a time component.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not just going to save $10,000 over the next 10 years. I want to have $10,000 a year from now.
Within 12 months.
That would be your SMART goal.
Well done, Chris.
Yeah, look at that.
So I did have one question in my mind with this. Okay, so we've got our emergency fund. It's $10,000. But the topic you brought up before, as far as going on the offensive, was that saving money so you can jump on an opportunity, right? Let's say I've got my emergency fund and then something comes up, not an emergency, it's an opportunity. Am I dipping into this emergency fund?
That's that's something I'd have to look at on a case-by-case basis. Ideally, no. Ideally, you want to have another pot of money that is your
opportunity
money. Fund. Yeah. So you've got your emergency fund and you've got your opportunity fund. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'd probably have a hard time resisting a temptation if I saw something that I felt like was a solid opportunity. And I had to dive into my emergency fund to jump on it. I'd be a liar if I say I wouldn't be tempted and possibly cave into that temptation.
It's not just saving money, Chris. You love spending money too.
Yeah, on the right things.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, good. I hope that was helpful. It's a great impact tip. Like I said, I love the concrete examples. So I want to hear other people's examples of ways that they're going to be going on the offensive, being proactive. So visit us on Facebook, visit us at HaulinAssetsLLC.com, and shoot your examples our way. And like I said, this is a topic I would love to revisit. So, Chris, anything else for today, or are we calling it good?
I think that's good.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next time.
See you next episode.